Welcome everyone to today's webinar on capture-driven strategies for winning proposals. I'm Shweb, the manager of marketing here at iQuasar, and I'm excited to be joined today by Meryl Angelicola. She's the VP at Gaudash and the founder of Proposal Team. And Meryl brings nearly 20 years of experience in proposal management and has a proven track record of helping government contractors improve their win rates. Today, she'll be sharing her insights on how to develop a capture-driven strategy that will help you win more proposals. Here's a quick overview of the talking points that we'll be going through in the webinar. The first one being common GovCon capture and proposal weaknesses and how to overcome them, and then impactful changes to improve your proposal win rates, real-world examples of a successful capture-driven strategy, preparing your team for a capture-driven approach, the role of leadership, basically the buy-in that the leadership gives in driving the success of capture-driven strategies, and insights to implement capture-driven methodologies to actually make it happen. So let's get started. Before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment to introduce iQuasar LLC. We provide a full range of services for government contractors, including proposal development, cleared recruitment, government contracting consulting, and GSA schedule consulting. We strive to be a reliable partner for any small business government contracting company looking to improve their processes and win more contracts. Now I'd like to officially introduce our speaker, Meryl. Meryl is the VP of Industry Solutions at Gaudash and the founder of Proposal Team, which is a non-profit organization dedicated to mentoring and training in proposal management. She was recently recognized as one of APMP's 40 under 40 and is an Engage FedGov honorary. Meryl is passionate about helping GovCon companies succeed, and I know you're going to benefit greatly from her expertise. Meryl, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
All right, thanks, Meryl. So our first question for you is, you work with a variety of government contractors, obviously, over the course of the years. What common challenges or weaknesses do you see in their capture as well as proposal processes? So over to you, Meryl.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, I think one of my favorite things about GovCon and proposals are that there's a lot of standardized things, right? So no matter where you work, you'll see similarities. No matter what the company is selling to the government, there's common roles and common processes, but that also means there's common struggles. So there's definitely some repeated struggles that I see or challenges. One being silos in the business development process. So many times you'll see a business development team be very segmented. So what I mean by that is there'll be the capture team, and then the proposal team, and then the delivery team, and it's sort of like a passing of the baton during the process, rather than folks working together. And the issue with this is that a proposal is really not one step of the process. It's the accumulation of the efforts that happen before the RFP drops, and then everybody's expertise after the RFP drops. So really, it needs to be more of a concerted effort, coordinated effort with everybody. But we see companies doing the baton passing siloed approach more and more, much more often than they do that collaborative effort.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Basically, the harmony between proposal teams, capture teams, and other teams is what is the key to success, basically, and that's exactly where a lot of companies get it wrong. The siloed approach is, what keeps a lot of small businesses and government contractors from succeeding. Great insights, Meryl. Now let's move on to the next question. Let's say if a GovCon firm could make one change to boost their proposal win rate, what would you recommend that they focus on first?
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite questions. So I think the biggest shift is going to be in the end goal. So a lot of companies, their end goal is to submit the proposal, right? But when the end goal becomes winning the contract, and you make that shift, not just the capture manager or the capture team being responsible for winning the contract, but everybody working together from the very beginning and through every phase of the process with the same goal, which is to win the contract, not just to get the proposal submitted, then you really begin to align with things that are going to improve your chances of winning. And what I mean by that is when your goal is to win the contract and not just to submit, a lot of proposals, you begin to make more strategic decisions at every phase. So with capture, you're really looking at what are our chances of actually winning this, and what information do we need to find out before the RFP drops while we can still talk to the customer in order to position ourselves well to win it or influence it? How do we get in with the customer so they know who we are by the time we write the proposal? On the proposal side, what that looks like is, how do we write, given this information we know from the capture managers and all the intel they've done, what are the win themes that we really want to push, and not just like a buzzword as a win theme, but a win theme being like, what are the main strategic objectives that we are pushing within this proposal? What do we want them to take away because we know what's important to them based on our capture efforts? And that's where this, coordinated effort comes in, is that it can't be siloed because GovCon and proposals are so dependent on everything that happens before the RFP drops. That will influence your chances of winning and the quality of your content. So really shifting as a group, as a whole team, to your goal being to win the contract and asking yourself critically, what does that look like? It may look like you can't submit as many proposals, but the ones that you do submit have a much higher quality, are much more informed by customer needs, and have a much higher chance of winning.
Very interesting. Thanks, Meryl. For our next question, we'd like to hear a real-world example, maybe, if you could walk us through a case study of how a company successfully used the capture-driven strategy to win a bid. And if you could also tell us a bit about any specific steps that they took during the business development process that helped them during the proposal phase, and of course then in winning the contract. So over to you, Meryl.
Absolutely. Okay, so I can give you an example from my real-world experience. So I had a really unique career trajectory. When I first started, I was in proposals, but I was also managing contracts on site at the CDC, and then also was the de facto capture manager for that work. So we were a small company, and so I really got a lot of experience in having it be a collaborative, coordinated effort, mostly because I was doing all three of the jobs. So it actually worked in my benefit because I was able to see that firsthand. But one of the examples of this that I utilize a lot is so I was managing a contract at the CDC, and I was walking the halls, and I knew this customer really well. And because I was walking the halls, I got to meet with this customer in real time as this was happening. We had reached a ceiling on a BPA contract that people didn't realize. Like, nobody on this contract was multi-award. No one realized we were meeting that ceiling. And so we ended up having to submit a proposal pretty much within 24 hours for, a sole source award to keep this work going. We would have never known about it had I not been walking the halls. But if it was not me, right, somebody else needs to be walking the halls, communicating with the customer. Because of the information we had from talking to the customer in this 24-hour time frame, but also before that, we were able to understand the level of flexibility they needed, what was most important to them as far as turnaround time and response time. And we were able to take that and write that into the proposal. And I know that because I also had to write the proposal. So I was able to kind of take this through the process. But we ended up winning. It was a really, really good example for me. And it's not your traditional, sole source award is not competitive, but I've taken this lesson that I learned because it was 24 hours and we really had to take all of those pieces of the puzzle and put it together. I've taken all those lessons and I've applied it to competitive bids. And so when I work with a team, if I'm the proposal manager, what I do is I get involved early in the process so that I can have that level of communication. When the RFP drops, you're not allowed to talk to the government in most cases outside of Q&A, which is not a time for strategy. So I get involved earlier than when the RFP drops. And what I try to do is write an executive summary myself as the proposal manager. And that requires back and forth with the capture manager, asking questions, critical questions about what the customer needs, what is most important to them, what challenges they've had, where the capture manager believes we align the most. If they can't answer those questions enough for me to write an executive summary, then it's almost like a real-time data call where I'll work with them and have them go back to the customer, help them figure out the information that's needed. And by the time the RFP drops, that just ensures that we have the information we need for a good capture strategy. It's been, talked to with the customer. And now what we're putting in our proposal is something that's been socialized and the customer understands it. And it's really helped me a lot. So that's one of the strategies that I implement based on that real life lesson.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that, Meryl. Now let's talk a bit about implementation. So implementing a capture-driven approach requires a shift in mindset, obviously. So how can companies prepare their teams and ensure everyone is on board with this way of working? Because obviously it's a bit different. So how do you actually get to implement it within a company?
Yeah, well, it really goes to what I said before. Taking away those silos, right? And not looking at your BD team as, smaller groups within a larger group that pass the baton. It's really important to look at them as one team and to help them see themselves as one team. And instead of having silos for different roles, it's really everybody has strengths and they contribute those strengths to the process. And it's not necessarily the timing of when those people begin to use those strengths, but being able to be empowered to use those strengths throughout the BD process. So what I mean by that is when people are empowered to use their strengths rather than told when to step in the timeline, that means proposal managers can start preparing much earlier. They can start communicating with the capture folks on what they need as far as, the information that will be required to respond to a proposal. The solutioning folks can begin to look at previous RFPs or, let you know if they are missing some, critical expertise. Maybe we need to bring in a partner. Having everybody involved or somebody involved in these skill sets throughout the process is going to allow you to spot weaknesses earlier, address them while you still have time to do it, and it's going to result in a much better proposal. So the mindset shift there is not bringing in parts of your BD team, capture, solution, proposals at certain points in the timeline, but empowering them to be involved from the beginning and making strategic choices about what you pursue to allow that to happen.
Great advice, Meryl. Now let's move on to the role of leadership. What role does leadership play in fostering such a culture, and what specific actions should leaders within companies take to champion this approach, basically?
Yeah, well, it's going to be uncomfortable. So this is the big thing. This is not possible without supportive leadership. So your BD team is really impacted by the strategic decisions of other people, right? So BD, especially proposals, there's a lot of upstream decisions that are made that determine how strategic proposal managers can be. And what I mean by that is how many proposals are we going after? Is our strategy to submit as many proposals as possible and hope that it's a numbers game, that some of them stick? Or is our strategy to prioritize winning the contract over submitting the proposal? And are we really being strategic in our choices of what we go after? Are we prioritizing good capture intel? Are we making decisions based on if we have the intel or if we don't have the intel? And are we going after fewer proposals, right? In order to put our resources, limited resources and time towards the ones that we know will win. Companies have very limited time and resources, as everybody knows who's listening to this. And so when you spread them thin, the result is going to be less quality, right? And less resources and effort able to be given to each individual opportunity. But when you make strategic decisions and spread those resources out among fewer opportunities, you get more mature proposals, more mature capture, and your team is less burnt out. So we need leadership to make those strategic decisions and prioritize winning.
Excellent points, Meryl. As we wrap up, let's summarize a bit. So, for companies looking to implement capture-driven strategies, especially those listening to this webinar, what are the key takeaways that they can leave with today?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest one here, if you're a leader listening to this, and I think we probably have many leaders who are, make sure that you are making decisions that positively impact your ability to win contracts and not just submit the most proposals. It's really easy to look at it as a numbers game and think that you're making a lot of progress because you submitted the most proposals, but the point of submission is winning. And if you submit 100 proposals and you lose all of them, the only thing you get is a burned out team and folks that are frustrated. It is much better to submit 50 proposals that have been really qualified, that your team believes in, and they can focus their efforts, or even 30 or 25. It's not an arbitrary number. It's really about how many resources you have. But it starts with you. And so you have to make those decisions in order to see this positive change. And the other thing, if we have proposal managers, capture managers that are listening, it's really important to know the customer. And so I encourage you to look at, some critical questions. If you go to Proposal Team, you'll see those listed out. We've got them on our site. But there's, a list of 10 questions that are critical to be able to answer about a bid before you can really write good content. And some of those things are, what's working, not working so well right now for this customer that could be working better. What is most important to this customer? Who's paying for this procurement? All of these questions and the answers to these questions will help you write an executive summary and help you determine the strategic direction of your content in the proposal. And if you don't have the answers to those questions, that's your cue to either no bid or go back if there's still time to find that information from the customer.
Makes sense. That brings us to the end of the conversation. Thank you, Meryl, for sharing those valuable insights. Thank you for your time with us today. And thank you for everyone watching. We hope you found this webinar informative and helpful. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks, Meryl.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye.